We have to protect Israel. There's no choice, and we have to do it. He has been hurt very badly because of what's happened here. He was not prepared. He was not prepared, and Israel was not prepared. And under Trump, they wouldn't have had to be prepared.
Was the prime minister distracted?
Who would have thought their intelligence would have been able to pick this up? Thousands of people were involved. Thousands of people knew about it, and they let this slip by. That was not a good thing for him or for anybody.
If the election wasn't rigged, there would be nobody even thinking about going into Israel. Then there was the inevitable attack 4 days later, which I predicted. And then 2 nights ago, I read all of Biden's security people. Can you imagine? National defense people. And they said, gee, I hope Hezbollah doesn't attack from the north because that's the most vulnerable spot. I said, wait a minute. You know, Hezbollah is very smart. They're all very smart.
I mean, it's really unspeakable, unspeakable. Liz Cheney wrote, after Hamas slaughters hundreds of Jewish families and Israel confronts an unprecedented security crisis, Donald Trump attacks the Israeli government and praises Hezbollah terrorists, which he did. Are Republicans really going to nominate this dangerous man to be president of the United States? And what an idiotic thing that Donald Trump said, that under Trump, they would not have had to be prepared, like somehow he was going to handle it. But you look, Admiral, at the autocrats, the dictators, the tyrants that Donald Trump praises. He calls Hezbollah very smart. Xi Jinping, a very smart man. Russian President Vladimir Putin, a genius and savvy. And calls the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, a man considered by many to be the most tyrannical among all these tyrants and terrorists, a great leader. It is frightening that there is a political party that's thinking of nominating such a man who continues and has, from the beginning of his political career, attacked Democratic leaders with a small d, and praised dictators, tyrants, and terrorists. He's done it time and time again, hasn't he?
He's not only done all of that, and by the way, the only group missing from that list of people he praised, and eventually he will, I'm sure, are the Ayatollahs, the rotten theocracy in Tehran, who have created these two monster children, Hezbollah and Hamas. They are anything but clever. They are anything but smart. And in the end, Israel will defeat them and crush them both. In terms of criticizing our enemies, he never does that. What he also never does is praise our allies. Think about how he denigrates NATO, how he talks about pulling out of the alliance, how he turns into mercenary transactions our alliances in the Pacific. And Joe, there is nothing better about the United States in the international sphere than this glittering array of alliances we have around the world with NATO, Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, all in the Pacific and elsewhere around the world. Go to Moscow, go to Beijing, you don't find discussions with allies. We are rich in that regard. President Trump needs to praise our friends and allies and start criticizing our enemies.
Retired four-star Admiral James Stavridis, thank you so much as always. Jonathan Lemire, again, you were the one who asked the question of whether Donald Trump was going to be supportive of U.S. intel agencies and the professionals that risk their lives every day for our security, or Vladimir Putin. He chose Vladimir Putin. But I just want to underline what we just heard from the Admiral. Not only does he constantly praise tyrants, and again, I wonder why Republicans continue to support a guy that praises President Xi, Putin, Kim Jong-un, Hezbollah, terror groups. Not only does he do that, but something that you saw in all of your coverage of him is just he praises tyrants and autocrats, and he attacks the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, whoever it is, Britain's Prime Minister, President of France, the Chancellor of Germany, I mean, we saw this time and time again. NATO constantly attacking democratically elected leaders and constantly praising tyrants that get to power by being bloodthirsty and vicious.
He repeatedly attacked the Prime Minister of Canada. He went after Australia. Yes, you can think of any ally, and Donald Trump tried to...
By the way, Australia, our closest ally. I remember I had to say it on the air time and again. The Australians have been with us in every single war over the past century. I remember picking up the phone and calling the ambassador to the United States from Australia saying, obviously, we love and respect you. But yeah, I'm so glad you brought Australia up in Canada, because it literally is all the leaders of all the democratically elected countries in our alliance.
Yeah, our closest allies. He threw candy at Chancellor Merkel once of Germany, let's recall. This is what Trump did. In fact, before we got to Helsinki on that trip in July of 2018, our stop before that was NATO, where Donald Trump nearly pulled the United States out of the post-World War II alliance. He was this close to just pulling the United States out of it, which would have led to its collapse. Of course, a few years later, NATO has rallied to defend Ukraine. Trump has always admired the strong men. He's admired the dictators. He's been envious of their powers. He is, of course, not shy in criticizing those who he feels like have not been appropriately grateful to him. As I reported an hour ago, part of the reason why he's mad at Netanyahu right now is because Netanyahu had the audacity to praise President Biden and the Biden's administration's response to the crisis there. And this is who the Republicans right now are looking hell-bent on to nominate again to be president of the United States. Someone who has tossed aside alliances and, let's not forget, is currently under indictment for sharing our most sensitive secrets. Some of that intelligence, of course, collected from our allies.
Well, and also, Jonathan, very important to remember that he's under indictment for sharing war plans of what we would do if we invaded Iran, if we were to strike military targets in Iran. He stole that information from the White House and then was waving it around reportedly to his campaign manager and other people and saying at the same time, I'm not supposed to show you this because it's classified and I can't unclassify it because I'm not president anymore.
Yeah. And one more data point, the meeting in the Oval Office with the Russian foreign minister where he turned over intelligence that burned assets. Who is that intelligence collected from? Israel.
Yeah.
All right.